Austen Lane from Action Sports Jackson, ESPN690, joined by Lance Archer, a.k.a. the Murder Hawk Monster. Lance, thanks for stopping by, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you having me on.
So, obviously, you're still kind of a fresh face to All Elite Wrestling. And when you debuted, it was violence, it was blood, it was craziness to say the least. Obviously, when you debut, you want to have that crowd reaction there. Unfortunately, with the pandemic going on, you didn't get to really experience that. But I just feel like your style comes across on TV so well in an empty arena. How did that debut for you go, and what did you get out of it?
I mean, obviously, you're talking about the Marco Stunt situation.
Yes, correct.
Poor Marco Stunt's been tossed from ring post to ring post the last 6 weeks or something like that since I debuted. It's what we're dealing with, man. It's life right now, and you just kind of keep rolling and going. And for us, when the red light comes on, the cameras come on, we know that hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people around the country and around the world are watching it. So that's our motivation. And luckily we've had probably the best audience in the world, the Gun Club and those guys who are constants for us. That little bit of noise helps me out, helps the fan base out, and even I think helps the TV product out just even that little bit. And so it's been fun for me, man. Like I said, once that red light comes on, that music hits, and everybody dies, plays, and I come out and blast some random cat that's behind the camera, or throw somebody out the entrance with me, whatever the case may be. I'm having fun. The Murder Hawk Monster is in full effect. There's a very big duality to my existence. There's the man Lance Hoyt, and then there's the Murder Hawk Monster Lance Archer. And like I said, when that camera comes on, there's nobody better than me when it comes to that intensity and that fire and that just destroy and destruction and death to everyone.
I love it. Well, and and we talk about this Saturday, right? Double or Nothing, Daly's Place, Jacksonville, Florida. Unfortunately, the crowd's not going to be there, but maybe that's a good thing for the crowd because no one's going to get punched by you. So that is kind of a plus if you really think about it.
I'll find a victim. Don't worry.
Absolutely. But, obviously, if you want to watch it on TV, check out Fight TV, Bleacher Report Live. It'll be out there for pay-per-view. But you're competing against Cody Rhodes for the TNT Championship. We'll talk about Cody Rhodes a little later, but I want to talk to you about literally – the tournament bracket. Usually when a big name comes into a new company, they give them the shot right away. You had to earn that shot. You had to go through that tournament bracket. Do you kind of take pride in that a little bit where you had to take on, you took on Dustin Rhodes, left him bloodied. I mean, a quart of his blood pouring out on the ring. Like, you've been through kind of the trials and tribulations already. You've established yourself. How much pride do you take in that?
Tremendous amount, because I think, especially this day and age of professional wrestling, everybody's debut when they come into a new company or they're a new character, whatever the case may be, usually it's some big bang of a moment. And mine's been a very cool, slow burn from the beginning. Jake came out the first time and met with Cody right after the last pay-per-view and was basically like, Caesar, I'm taking you down. I have a client and you're going to wish he wasn't here type scenario. And everybody's like, well, who's this client? I think there were rumors, with Brody coming into the company. I've been announced a part of the company, and then there were some unknown factors, so nobody knew exactly who Jake's client was going to be. And then, we slowly sauntered out to the ring and just sat ringside and watched Cody. And, the seeds were planted for Cody and I a long time ago. And then to have to go through this tournament and actually earn my way into that championship picture, that championship match that's happening on the 23rd, this Saturday, it's super prideful in the fact that I had a goal. I knew I had to get to those finals. Cody had to get to those finals. Ultimately, I didn't care if it was anybody from that side, but, I knew Cody was on the other side. And if he got there, I had to get through my side. I had to get through Cole Cabana. I had to get through Dustin, and both very strong competitors in their own right. I've wrestled Cabana many times in Japan. I'd wrestled Dustin like 10 years ago, something like that. So the fact that I got to be in the ring with these guys in a tournament for a title that's the first ever with the company. And then, Cody did make it to the championship match with me, which maybe won't be good for him. Actually, it won't be good for him at all on Saturday. But, it's really cool to have to come in and earn that and actually get there and, become the first TNT champion. And in my opinion, the only TNT champion there'll ever be.
So we talk about the tournament bracket. I just call it the path of destruction because no one's even really come close to touching you yet. And obviously, the architect of that path of destruction is Jake Roberts. A guy who we've had history with before. But what does it mean, one, working with Jake Roberts? What have you learned from him so far? And what does it mean to you just to have him kind of present you to the world, to possibly a new casual fan base of wrestling fans?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and Jake's great. I've known Jake for many, many years. I've seen Jake on some of his unfortunate downs, but the fact that he is on such a good high right now, a good place right now in his life and in his mentality. And I think he loves wrestling so much. And to come into this, when Jake and I were first paired, it's like Jake's a legend. He's an icon. He's Jake the Snake Roberts. I've done my part in this business for nearly 20 years now and really had made my namesake in Japan. So to come back to the U.S. market and to have Jake the Snake Roberts, who, wrestling legend that everybody knows, and even the newer generation who are learning who Jake the Snake Roberts is going back and finding out what a legend he truly was and is still today, because the way he can talk, that snake in the grass, that smooth presentation, the little quips he takes and says, it's very smartly done. It helps me tremendously, like you said, because now I'm going to be reacclimated back into the U.S. market. Whereas, like I said, I was in Japan for almost 9 years. It helps me tremendously because those people who are going, well, we know who Jake the Snake Roberts is, and if they didn't know who the Murder Hawk Monster Lance Archer is, they absolutely do now. And then for the fan base, because we have a very smart fan base, a lot of our fans were watching New Japan. They did see the stuff that I got to do in the G1. They did see Mox and I tear it up at the Tokyo Dome on January 4th this year. So they knew kind of who I was and what I was about. Now it's on a new platform with AEW. Now it's with Jake the Snake Roberts. And that combination has worked so well and so smoothly. And like he's my yin to my yang. I'm his yang to his yin, however you want to say it. It's been a really cool thing and really, really cool path. He comes out, he'll cut you smooth and deep, and then I'll just kick your teeth out your face.
I love it. And listen, before we get into New Japan, I want to talk about that, but I'm sure you saw Jake Roberts' comments last night, okay? And him and Arn Anderson had one for the ages. I think all wrestling fans kind of got goosebumps a little bit. Mine haven't gone away quite yet. But he did say something. Let's address the elephant in the room. He called out Mike Tyson, and he said that you wanted to knock out Mike Tyson. I get it, man. You're the Murder Hawk Monster, and I appreciate it. But was part of you like, Jake, what are you doing right now trying to call out Mike Tyson since he's going to be there in house?
Hey, I think everybody that's ever been a fan of boxing knows who Mike Tyson is. And if you saw that video recently of him just going to town and being as deadly as he's ever been as far as boxing's concerned, he's Mike Tyson. You can't take that away. You can't sit here and I can't say I'm the Murder Hawk Monster and he's not the baddest man on the planet. But if the baddest man on the planet turns his head for 2 seconds, I'm going to put a boot through his face and knock his teeth out his mouth.
I don't
need gloves. I got a boot, a claw, and a choke slam.
I like it. Elbows, man. Elbows are all legal. Power slams are legal. Yeah, do what you got to do. You talked about it a little bit now. So your time in New Japan, and it's funny because sometimes it seems like guys kind of get their starts in the States a little bit in the indies, and they're kind of considered misfits, and they don't get used properly, whatever the reason is. They go to New Japan and they kind of like level up a little bit, like they reach a new stratosphere of greatness. And I think you're a prime example of that. What was your time in New Japan like? What was the evolution of Lance Archer like there? And take us through that, that match obviously with G1. To me, it's Will Ospreay put you on the map, man. But first of all, talk about your time and your evolution.
Right. Again, this July is 20 years for me in the business. I've been lucky enough, I was TNA for 5 years, 2004 to 2009. And if your listeners don't know TNA, Impact Wrestling. And then I had a cup of coffee up north, WWE, was on TV for about a year. It wasn't a very successful run, but it was there. And then I got lucky enough to go in Japan because I did some small Japan stuff, it's a company called Makahan, Vader Time Wrestling. I did one tour with All Japan back in 2009. And then when I came out of WWE, I went back to Japan and got lucky enough to be a part of New Japan. And this year's G1 wasn't my first G1. It was my 5th G1. But the eyes that were on the G1 this year were greater than they've ever been in the history of the company. When I started with the company, the G1 was a big deal, but it was really only in Japan. And the company is like nearly 50 years old now. But in the last few years, they've really done their hardest to branch out globally, you know, with the New Japan World, and then they were on Access TV for several years. And then culminating with the G1 for myself, you know, what Japan did for me was early in my career, whether it was TNA, WWE, Independence, whatever the case was, there was a lot of don't do that. A lot of people would say, yeah, that's good, but yeah, don't do this. That's good, but yeah, don't do that. That's somebody else's move, or that's similar to theirs. Yeah, don't do that. So I heard a lot of no's. The one thing I say about Japan, when I first went to Japan, like I had my first match, and they were like, yeah, very good, but more strong, more big, more monster. I heard more monsters so many times. And it was never a point where I came back and they went, yeah, don't do that. It was always like, yeah, very good, but more big, more strong, more monster. It's like, okay, I'll give you more big, more strong, more monsters. Like every time I went out there, I was trying new things and branching out my own personality. And, you know, I was calling myself the American Psycho back then. And, you know, I was kind of figuring out who that was and what that was about, you know, and there was a time frame that I was coming out and spitting water and throwing water and carrying like 9 water bottles in my pants and throwing it everywhere I could and going to the audience. You know, that got taken away, but it was still a lot of fun. It was kind of old school Bruiser Brody, but in kind of a new school fashion. You know, I couldn't kill all the audience members, but I could definitely douse them with water. You know, like I said, and when that went away, though, luckily, you know, New Japan has a plethora of young lions that are here, there, and everywhere around the ring. And I just decided, you know, the young lions always get it from the heels, from the bad guys. But I was like, you know what, I'm going to just take it upon myself to make sure that every single one of them gets it every single time that I come out to the ring. And it kind of just, that became my entrance and my personality. And that's really when the Murder Hawk Monster started to take off. And then you talk about Will Ospreay. You know, Will is absolutely one of the best in the world. I've told him that personally. You know, I think, you know, when the business comes back, he'll just step right up and continue his path and whatnot. But it was one of those things for me that, you know, I've been around the business long enough. I think even the company put me into the G1, which I originally wasn't even in the G1. I was going to be a part of the Dallas show, but I wasn't in the tournament. And then within like a day and a half, something changed and they did put me in the tournament. So I took it upon myself to do everything I possibly could to change myself, change my image, change kind of some of my moveset, change my mentality, change my personality. You know, not like going from one extreme to the next, but advancing upon it in a way that nobody had seen before. And I knew going into that first match, because we were the first G1 match of the series. We were the first G1 match outside of Japan. We were the first G1 match in Dallas, Texas, my hometown. My family was like 4 rows back. I could see them from the ring. Friends and family, like I said, that had been watching me for the 20 years, because I started in Dallas, small independent company called PCW, Professional Championship Wrestling there. People who'd been watching me my entire career were at this event. So I knew that I had the prime opportunity. We're live on Access TV that night, that everybody around the world was going to be watching this. And I knew I had to knock it out of the park. And actually, Will and I had a really good match in the New Japan Cup in March before that, you know, the New Japan faithfuls had seen, but a lot of the world hadn't. And that one really surprised, I think, New Japan, because they went, wait a second. We've known Lance's KES, Killer Elite Squad, tag team guy, this, and then all of a sudden this singles guy came out and did what I did, and they were like, wait a second, that was not what we expected. So I surprised them in March, and then they put Will and I back together for the G1, and it was one of those things. Now I don't have that surprise factor for them. I still did with the fan base, but not with the company. So we had to knock it out of the park, and I'd like to believe we did. And, you know, one thing you said was Will put me on the map. Well, I put myself on the map working with Will, and that's how I look at it. That's how I look at it. And it was one of those things. And then the whole G1, just, you know, different workers from Okada to Sonatas to Evils to everybody that I got to work with in my block in every single match, even though results weren't always the greatest, the match itself were really good, and, you know, just kept getting positives out of it. Bad Luck Fale, 2 of the biggest guys in the company, in the business, went out there and put on a Giants match that a lot of people didn't expect to see from us, things like that. Yeah. And it just kind of kept snowballing. And the U.S. title that came about, you know, it's an opportunity that fell in my lap, and I capitalized on it last October. And then getting to work with Mox at the Tokyo Dome, just everything in 2019 just was like bam, 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 bam in a really cool way. Sorry, it was long. Yeah.
No, absolutely, man. And it kind of shows the testament to who you are as a person too, right? Because some of these opportunities came at the last moment. And they always say pressure bursts pipes or pressure creates diamonds. Obviously, it created diamonds with you, man, because under those pressure situations, you're able to shine. So props to you for doing that, obviously. So I have a friend who works at Daly's Place. And the night that you showed up in Jacksonville, and keep in mind, he's a very casual wrestling fan. But the night you showed up in Jacksonville, he's like, dude, there's somebody new here. He's huge. He's got a mohawk. And I can't exactly quote him word for word, but he said, this guy's a bad AF, all right? We'll just say that much.
It's not a mohawk. It's a murder hawk.
Okay, I'm sorry, the murder hawk, exactly. So he said he had a murder hawk, and he said he's a bad AFer, okay, just to try to censor it a little bit. But I'm sure you get that all the time, you know? And in terms of the wrestling archetype, you're obviously that big dude, right? You're the relentless monster, if you will. But I see your skill set, and I see you're always progressing. You're adding these new moves. You're doing moves that cruiserweights should be doing, not big guys your size. Do you take pride in kind of being maybe that new school guy who, yeah, I'm the big guy, and yeah, the body slams, all this, but I can kind of switch it up too and kind of throw some athleticism in there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the fun part about being able to surprise people, even at my seasoned age in this business. We won't talk about that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to take, you know, the athleticism that I know I've always had, and that was part of what I was talking about with the run with especially the G1 and this last year in New Japan, was just going, you know, this is kind of a do or die situation. Like you said, pressure either creates, what'd you say, something or diamonds?
I said pressure either creates diamonds or else you just crumble. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I was like, I'm not going to crumble. I was like, there's no way I'm going to make something happen now, because I didn't have, you know, I don't have another 20 years in front of me in this business like a lot of these young guys do, and I hope they can be in this business that long. And so just being able to do things like taking an old school rope walk and adding a moonsault at the end, you know, stuff like that, you know. Yeah. And again, that was something that I'd done in New Japan, so the New Japan faithful had seen it and known. But when I did it in AEW for the first time, there were just so many people that were just straight up AEW fans, straight up American wrestling fans, that were just like, what the heck did I just see? And that's fun to do, is to go out there and do stuff like that. You know, there's guys that are 100 times more athletic than I. Phoenix guys like that who basically can just run out and run around the top rope, the complete ring. I'm never going to be able to do that. But to be able to do what I do at my size and with my style and the character that I'm presenting and stuff like that, it's a lot of fun to throw out those little quips of like, oh, well, where'd that come from type scenario. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun, man.
All right, we got two more questions for you quick, then we'll let you go, man. Your athleticism obviously shines through, and I'm sure it dates back to your times at Texas State playing quarterback. To talk about the transition, you know, going from being a football player to a wrestler, number one, and number two, what is it like being on a college football team where the most badass player is a quarterback?
Well, I probably wasn't a badass back then. I was just
okay.
You know, red jersey, don't hit him, barely did anything. You know, I mean, shoot, man, so I played I was on the team my first 2 years at a small school called Howard Payne University. And then I transferred over to where I ultimately graduated from, Texas State, or was Southwest Texas when I was there. And I was only on the team for the 1 year that I was at Southwest. So I didn't even compete in all 4 years, and I never actually played on the field. So I was a quarterback, never threw one interception because I threw all my passes on the sideline. You know, and it was what it was. We had like 9 quarterbacks at Howard Payne. We had 7 in camp at Texas State. And, you know, it was what it was. I did what I did. I loved football and I wanted to play, and that was my passion, you know, going out of high school into college. But it didn't pan out. It was just, I guess, you know, it wasn't meant to be. And I was a wrestling fan, and I'm not like a wrestling fan that's been watching it since I was a little kid, like a lot of guys. I really only started watching wrestling, I think, when I was a sophomore in high school, you know, when the WCW Monday Night Wars with WWF at the time was still going on, and you had to bust out the VHS tape if you wanted to watch both of them and stuff like that. That's dating me a little bit there. You know, and that was the fun time, you know, and Sting, who, you know, awesome dude, got to work with him in TNA. He was the reason I started watching the business, and it was kind of cool to get a little plug from him on Twitter not too long ago, you know, just because he's such a cool dude. You know, sometimes they say don't meet your heroes because you'll be disappointed. Mm-hmm. When I met him the first time in TNA way back in the day, I got to be part of. He's got like a little movie, like a little low budget movie they made at the asylum in Nashville, and I got to be a part of it, and I got to hit him with a chair and stuff like that. So as a guy and a kid then, that was the best moment of my career at that point. And he's been nothing but cool, man. Like, even while I was there, he was always willing to give advice. He was always very positive. And like, when I was leaving TNA and I was attempting to go to WWE, we had a phone conversation, and he gave me a lot of advice then. And, I'm not by any means saying we're like buds and we hang out or anything like that, but he's willing to drop some advice if I need it at any time. And I just think that's a testament to him and the person he is. And he's kind of the reason that I got into wrestling. So when football kind of came to an end, I was working in nightclubs in Austin, Texas, and the guy that I worked for knew a guy that had started a wrestling school in Austin, Texas called the Southwest Wrestling Federation. And so, he introduced me, and I went out there and I did like a tryout, and it was the most painful thing I'd ever done. All this time playing football, and I was, like I said, I was a quarterback. They put a little red jersey on us and said, "Don't touch the quarterbacks." Even us 5th, 6th, and 7th stringers that were just on the practice squad, they didn't let them murder us. So it was the most painful thing that I'd ever done. I actually tried to get out of going to the school, but the guy was like, "Oh, well," I was like, "Man, I can't afford it. I'm a poor college kid." He's like, "Well, how much can you pay?" And I said, "I don't know, $200 a month." And he went, "Okay." And I went, "Oh, crap." So I kind of backed myself into it, thinking he'd say, "That's too low. I can't accept it." So now it was like, either go, "Okay, cool, and I'm coming," or come up with some other lame excuse why I couldn't do it. And luckily, my family supported me, and especially my mom. My dad was always like, "That's cool, son, but please graduate college." And, my mom was the one that would come to the shows and yell and boo and scream, at the other guys, and she had fun with it. And, so, she and them supported me when I decided to go to wrestling school. And, so I stayed in college, and I went to wrestling school, and 2-3 days a week, I'd drive about an hour one way, an hour back. And it was just me and one other dude, and the guy who trained me, and Solo Faitala. And Solo just kind of taught us the very, very basics. I remember going on a road trip with some of Shawn Michaels' kids out of San Antonio one time, and they were asking me questions. And the questions they were asking me, I was like, "What are you talking about?" And they were like, "Oh, well, how are you going to do this, that, and that?" And I went, "What?" I was like, "No, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this because this is what I do." And they went, "That makes no sense whatsoever," And I started learning more on the road and whatnot. And so the transition from football to wrestling was an interesting one, just because, like I said, it was more painful than anything I'd ever done. But I found that passion. I found some early success just on the independent level. Got on with, like I said, there was a company in Dallas called PCW, Professional Championship Wrestling, that ran a weekly show on TV, like weekly live shows. And we were drawing, for an independent show on a weekly basis, 300 to 400 people, 800 to 1,000 for our bigger events, because we do those once every 2 or 3 months. And we were on TV, local TV in Dallas. So, it was a great learning curve there. Then I got lucky and got on with TNA. And, like I said, the rest is history, bam, bam, bam. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a crazy road, man.
I love it, man, and I love it. There is no red jerseys in professional wrestling, man. I love that. That's going to be a teaser one day, I feel like. All right, so the final question for you right now, man, and let's get to the match at hand. You and Cody Rhodes. You annihilated his brother. Your partner in crime, your mentor, Jake Roberts, kind of put his hands on Brandy a little bit. We're starting to see an unhinged, pissed off Cody Rhodes, right? And when that happens, it's for a dangerous Cody Rhodes. What are your thoughts about Cody Rhodes going into this match? Obviously for the TNT Championship, a lot on the line. Your thoughts, and how do you see it going down?
A dangerous Cody Rhodes, huh? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. It was one of those things that Dustin, I made him bleed. QT, I got my hands on his other little buddy, QT, and decimated him, a couple weeks ago and whatnot. The whole American Nightmare family, Brandy got to experience the old school Jake with Damien the Snake and whatnot. And, which, it was fun watching the fan base react to that. And it's just fun to kind of, like I said, he adds that old school element that is kind of new again, because there's a lot of fans that are just now learning what that was all about, and it freaks them out, and they're like, "Oh my God!" And it's like, okay, search the history of this business. This isn't new, but it's new to a whole new generation, which is really cool. And then Cody, yeah, he's pissed, and rightfully so. He better bring some fight. He better bring some of that little spunk he had the other day when we got into a little brawl, because if he doesn't, I'm going to destroy him in 2 seconds flat and take the title before it was even known. And then he would have wasted his time on his side of the bracket, and all the other guys that he got lucky and beat would, be really disappointed that I beat him up so quickly and easily. So he better bring some of that fight. But ultimately, the result's going to be the same. The same that it was for QT, the same that it was for Dustin, Colt, Marco, every single guy that I've murdered on the way to the ring, out of the curtain, whatever you want to say. That's what's going to happen to Cody. If you tune in on Saturday the 23rd, live on pay-per-view, you're going to see a brand new Murder Rock Monster, Lance Archer, the champion, TNT champion, for the first time ever. I'll snatch it out of Mike Tyson's hands, and me and Jake will go on our way. And, the mantra is everybody dies. It's wrestling. It's fun. You say it, the Murder Rock Monster. It's fun to say. And that's kind of going to be the whole point. We're going to have fun. And I think the fan base is going to have fun watching me destroy and decimate every person that steps in the ring with me as the new and only TNT champion.
I mean, that's the way to close out the interview right now. You don't need me for that. Lance Archer, man, the Murder Hawk Monster. I appreciate you coming on, taking some time with us. Good luck. Well, I'm not going to say good luck because luck's for the unprepared. You're obviously prepared, so good skill to you, sir, on Saturday.
All right, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, Allie, thank you very much.
Of course, you're welcome.
I'm sorry I ran a little longer, but
no, it was great. That was great. And whenever you have links to the whatever you're working on, I'd love to see it.
Fantastic. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
You ended?
Yep.
Okay.
I think so.